Daybreak, we mentioned that a state of politics, we'd like to hear from you at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. Talk about all these topics we're going to talk about. It's a general pulse of what's going on in the country in terms of politics. No particular topic, by the way. Yes, that's what we do here every Thursday. It's State of the Nation. So we talk about a myriad of issues. Let me introduce my guest real fast. Otiende Amolo, Member of Parliament for Arieda, is here. Honorable Kimani Mamatangi, Senator for Kiambu, is here. And Honorable Senator Samson Cherargei, Senator for Nandi, is also joining us online. Thank you so much for making time. I'll start off with you, Honorable Otiende, and talk about the inauguration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as the U.S. President and U.S. Vice President, respectively. What does that mean for Kenya, and what was your general sentiments after that inauguration?
Thank you, and good morning, Kenya. I was quite happy to see the inauguration ceremony. As you might remember, I was one of the international observers to the elections. And as early as the mid-afternoon of 6th of December last year, I gave the view, together with my colleagues, that the election was fair. It was actually quite transparent. I also gave the view that, in my opinion, the legal challenges to the outcome were likely to fail. And I also gave the view that despite President Trump's initial indications that he might not accept it and the inauguration might not proceed, that in my view, the inauguration would proceed anyway, because there were certain systems in place that did not depend on the incumbent president. So yesterday, it was quite refreshing to see the inauguration proceed, although it was also disturbing in two ways. One, it was quite disturbing that the incumbent president refused to attend. I think that was just shameful. Even in our worst of times, and you remember when President Moi in 2002 was leaving power, and despite all the insults, he still braved it and attended the handover ceremony. I think that was shameful. It was also shameful to see 25,000 troops deployed to protect Americans from Americans. And I think that tells us that all democracies are work in progress. I think the speech by the new president, Joe Biden, was quite good. It was embracing and it was progressive. It tries to unite. How far he goes in that unity is an open question, because his predecessor did so much to create disunity. But I think the person of the moment was Lady Gaga when she came there to sing the national anthem. And I think she wore a dress that would cover this whole studio. I don't even know how she managed to sit there after. Yes.
Well, thank you. What are your thoughts?
Trevor, good morning. Let me say good morning to our viewers. Yes, I think it's a sigh of relief for the entire world. At one point we got very anxious. What was going to happen if all the promises that Trump had made about violating the process and making it chaotic were to come to pass? But I also should say that I think it's been a long time coming for Joe Biden, and personally, I'm happy for him. Joe Biden is one person who has had a very long walk to that position. He has had to overcome a lot of, handicaps, challenges, problems, right from the time when he was in Senate and even running for Congress. He's a gentleman who even overcame personal, challenges. Starting as a stutterer, he would not make a speech that would, where he would pronounce words correctly. And having even been judged at childhood, to be retarded. And he has had to fight all this way until where he is today. So I believe he's representative of how one can overcome adversity and rise to the top. Also for Kamala Harris, I think it's also an all-time first. Being a woman, being a woman of color again, to ascend to the highest office in the land. I think the two represent a new dawn. Let's hope that they're able to work quickly to restore the confidence that people have had in the United States for a long time, and they are because Trevor,
Yeah.
Democracy has been mirrored against how the United States administers and conducts itself. Yeah. And Trump revealed an underbelly of the United States that most people in the world never believed existed. And so covering that, making people believe one more time that what they say is what they mean, and that they can be followed. I think it's going to be a tall order for the two. Hopefully, they can work on it, and probably modify, in my view, some of the Democratic Party's principles that have seemed to aggrieve other nations. You know, I believe we as a country, and remember when President Obama visited Kenya, President Uhuru had an opportunity to tell him about their position on issues like gay marriage and other issues that they, you know, hold as dear and as part of their principles. So I believe, I hope they're able to carry that balance. Okay. One would not exit that debate without remembering the good work I believe Barack Obama did in that country, because Obama seemed to have balanced the entire spectrum, from foreign relations to the problems of terrorism and their relationship with the Muslim world, and definitely their local politics. I think he was a very good example. Biden, having worked with him for 10 years, I believe he's got, for 8 years, I believe he's got a good position to do the job.
Senator Cherargei, what are your views on this before we get into local politics?
Thank you. I think for being the leader of the free world, the inauguration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris was the essence of the importance in the democracy of the entire world. I think the whole world was watching, and the democracy principle that has been set in the U.S. has always been a standard or a benchmark for the entire country.
Yeah.
Secondly, Kamala Harris, being woman of color and origins and roots of Asian origin, is very critical. And also, I think it is a trailblazer for the entire women across the world that you don't need to wait to be given leadership, but you must go for it. Thirdly, I think looking at an attendance of Donald Trump, of course, many people will agree or disagree. But the presence of his Vice President, Mike Pence, was also very critical that as much as you work together, there is the respect of association and respect of different divergent views. And thirdly and finally, I think Barack Obama has been a good mentor to the President, Joe Biden, having worked with him for 8 years. And being the mentor, you could see Barack Obama coming out strongly to campaign for Joe Biden. And I think for many people, we need to learn from them that you don't need to undercut your predecessor or somebody who wants to have worked with you before, or there is no need to be betrayal, because we know the currency of politics is always betrayal. But I think what Barack Obama did to Joe Biden is very significant. And I think as Kenya, we need to learn, because we have seen betrayal in politics as being the order of the currency that we have in this country. But finally, I think for us, looking keenly, because we know the policies of Democratic Party principle is outside international relations. So we'll be very keen to see the engagement of international relations with other countries, especially in Africa, noting that Donald Trump did shut out Africa in terms of his international relations engagement and many other foreign policies. So we expect the Biden administration to have good foreign international relations with most of us here in Africa that will allow us to spar, especially not only politically, but governance issues, but also in terms of trade, such as we have AGOA, among others.
All right. Cherargei, now that you're with me, and let's start with you on this issue that you mentioned, that currency of politics is betrayal. Let's talk about now local politics here. And we see that the Orange Democratic Movement has begun the process of identifying its presidential candidate for the 2022 general election. It is now inviting bids from those seeking to be considered for the party ticket. Is this the right time, based on what your understanding is? I know you're not speaking on their behalf, but as an outsider and as a politician, is this the right time to be looking for a candidate?
I don't know why ODM would be inviting other presidential bids in their party, yet we know the automatic presidential candidate. As we have put it, I do not have authority to speak about it, but I think my senior counsel, Atiendo Molo, will be in a better position. But what I can say at this point in time is that ODM has realized that time is running out. They have realized that they need to put their house in order. And they have also realized this is the Deputy President, Dr. William Ruto, has been strategically placing himself to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta. And I think when ODM now, and you know, one interesting thing is that ODM, under the guise of handshake, many of the ODM itself, an ODM party leader, has been looking towards the endorsement or the benefits of handshake to have his ODM leader, Raila Odinga, to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta. But it's shaping us because people like Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi, among other presidential hopefuls, have been peeping to the window of State House, imagining that President Uhuru Kenyatta will pick one of them and say this so and so is Tosha. But ODM has realized that will not work, and I think now ODM is trying to revamp his image after Kenyans and accusing Jubilee of failures. If you look, finally, if you look at Raila Odinga, he has been systematically for the last few weeks pointing out at Jubilee government failures, which means he has reached a point of having ODM to disassociate it with misperformance of the Jubilee government. But I think what ODM is trying to do, in my own opinion, and as an outside observer, looking at the politics and the landscape of this country, is that ODM has been trying to revamp himself, both politically and its image, sprucing its image, looking at the succession. But you know, one of the national dailies yesterday did put a headline that President Uhuru Kenyatta is now telling the ODM leader Raila Odinga to come up with what he wants really in government. So that I think they want to have a partnership. But what I can advise ODM is that it's too late for them to run away from Jubilee. I think the handshake, they must carry the blame and the government failures of Jubilee. As is now, they can't run away. Atiendo Omola and the rest are now in parliamentary leadership that were occupied by the majority party, Jubilee. So they are also shaping policies and parliamentary policies, intervention and parliamentary business that was meant to be done by the government, which is the majority side. So if there is failure, of course, the ODM must carry most of the blame of the Jubilee government failure.
Otiende Mola, have you realized that time is running out? Is this ODM trying to play catch-up with Deputy President William Ruto?
I like the conjuncture of people like my friend Senator Cheregei and others who really have no idea what's going on, but want to post like they do. Because this story is really a very simple story. The ODM Central Committee said two things. One, it said that it's now going to start the process of identifying a presidential candidate. Two, it said that it's going to start the process of harmonization to strengthen the grassroots. There's no magic in that, and that should not even be news. No one doubts that ODM was always going to present a presidential candidate. In fact, I've kept saying, for those who've kept saying that Raila Amolo Odinga is in BBI because he wants to run for presidency, even just last week I said that that's a very idiotic argument. Because whether BBI is adopted or not, we will always have a presidential candidate and a running mate. So there is no magic. We are less than 2 years to the next election. That election date is not going to change. Any party that is serious must start identifying its presidential candidate. And I think the whole country knows that the word democratic in ODM means just that. Even our identification of the presidential candidate must be democratic. And that's why as far back as 2006, during the Pentagon days, and I was involved in the process, we had 6 candidates, and there had to be a process of nomination. Secondly, harmonization is quite logical, because there have been all sorts of new political parties and political movements by people, there are people who've defected. So any serious party must now go back and start filling in the gaps. And even people like my friend Senator Cheregei must now start identifying whether they're in UDA or in Jubilee. Because, you know, when you hear them speak, like even now, they say they speak like they're in Jubilee. And when you look at the papers, they're celebrating UDA. And when you hear them in the rallies, they say they are Hustler Nation. They had even identified some party. So they are partyless.
Yeah.
So those who are with parties like us must start the process. And it's not about signing, you know, agreements with Jubilee and all. I heard Senator Sergej say that ODM can now not, you know, divorce from Jubilee.
Yeah.
We have never been married. ODM has never been in Jubilee, you know, and we have always had an understanding, what you'd call a cessation of hostilities,
yeah,
and a working together formula in things like BBI for the future of this country. And the fact that some of us are in parliamentary leadership has nothing to do with that. In fact, I have always advised, and let me reiterate this, the Constitution of Kenya and all our legislation does not stop anyone from any party assuming parliamentary leadership.
Yeah.
All it does is to restrict 2 committees to be led by the party that is not governing. Yeah. You know, that is the PAC and PIC. But for all the others, yeah, you know, it's only that because of the majority of the members are always from the, you know, the majority party. Yeah. So they tend usually to determine the leadership from that, but it's not restricted. But the point is this: what ODM is doing has nothing to do with the BBI. It has nothing to do with any other party formation. Yeah. ODM is doing what it always does, because ODM is the biggest and the oldest of these parties that are active right now.
All right. Well, Matangi, are you concerned of the timing? Because we've seen several times ODM members saying DP Ruto is campaigning too early, this is not the time, but now they're looking for a presidential candidate. Are you concerned of the timing?
The timing by ODM,
by ODM, yes,
to start identifying its presidential candidate.
Are they now playing catch-up with DP Ruto?
Well, you know, Trevor, I agree entirely with my good friend Otiende Amolo on one part, the part of harmonization. Yeah. I think that is their right as a party to make sure that their ground is neat and that their floors are swept. And whatever they would want to do and put the house in order for them to be ready for elections. And of course, running their party. That they can do. And I believe nobody should be worried about any political party doing that, and they're welcome. The part that I would find curious or rather interesting is the second part of identifying a presidential candidate. Yeah. Because for goodness sake, I think they could use that, and of course this is unsolicited advice, but those resources at that time can be used in probably marketing their candidate more.
So you think they already know their candidate?
I mean, me and you, Trevor, know that.
Just say it the way it is.
that they have a candidate, and they've always had a candidate. Yeah. And if they even tried, anyway, the reality is, and I would say this to my good friend Otiende Amolo, the reality is even if they tried for any one reason to look for any other candidate other than the one they have, they would do very badly, you know, in elections. So I believe what they would just do is let them put the house in order. Yeah. That's all right. I believe also, if you look at what has been happening, because we have to agree and speak honestly, Trevor, that since the release of the BBI report for public discussion and awaiting now the process to the county assemblies, that move has started a huge political wave, and things now have ultimately turned into a full campaign, you know, atmosphere within the country. Yeah. Such that it's now even not worrying people whether BBI is going to pass, especially party supremos and bigwigs. It's now worrying them more as to what position will their parties be in at the end of the process of BBI. Yeah. And that is why you find that even ODM will have to start thinking that way, or they're thinking now that way. Because if you look at, you know, the Jubilee arm of Tanga, Kieleweke, now, you know, UDA and its teams, and now ODM, they would feel threatened. For that matter, is the ground being swept and taken over right now by those that are actively there, while we are still in slumber, and slumber meaning in quotes, still looking at other things. And remember, Trevor, that the mindset right now of the president, having been a serving president for those 2 terms and now looking at how to work on his legacy to leave office, his mindset is very different from the mindset of, for example, Raila Amolo Odinga, who has not declared that he's leaving office, neither William Ruto, who is seeking to go to office. And so the way they would plan and whip their troops and draw a roadmap is absolutely different. So I think I would only wish Otiende Amolo and team good luck in sprucing up their candidate and marketing him more, and then of course living true to what they have said. The only bit is on this you know, affair of saying that Jubilee is run by ODM. On that particular vote or issue, I would want to differ with my good friend Cheragay, because I'm a believer in taking responsibility. You know, the mandate of running this country for the next 10 years after 2013 and again 2017 was given to Jubilee. And there is no way, as a senator elected on a Jubilee ticket and still a member of Jubilee, will I entertain a scenario whereby we are saying we are running away from responsibility. We have time to serve the people of this country. We have to own the process. We have, where there have been failings, we have to correct them before the bell rings. And whatever achievements we have made then, we'll have to make them better and market them and show the people that this is what we have done as the party. So I don't think that I would be one saying that ODM has a stake in Jubilee or they're controlling. They're not. And I would, if they're trying to, they would rather stop. Because we are the ones who are going to be judged at the end of the day. The people of Kenya will be asking Jubilee, we give you this position, we give you this responsibility until 2022. Show us your achievements. Show us what you did with it.
And we'll be talking about the Jubilee achievement in just a bit. Let me bring back Cherargei on this issue of on the politics of ODM and what they're going to rally support for the candidate who you think they are going to rally. There's a concern here on the dailies that Uhuru Kenyatta might fail to rally supporters to back party leader Raila Odinga in the wake of the resurgent Deputy President William Ruto. Would you be surprised? Because, you know, the president has said that the BBI agenda has nothing to do with any presidential race in 2022. In fact, he has said that he has not endorsed anyone. Would you be surprised then that he wasn't really pushing for Raila to be the president?
Thank you, Trevor. And it was surprising that the president did choose to address Mount Kenya, but that is another story for another day. He has his own reasons as to why he was doing that. But one interesting thing that the ODM, I think the reason ODM Central Committee was meeting is because they suspect that they are being thrown under the bus, because the president did make clear that he did not have intention of endorsing anybody for presidency. And I think he is trying to follow in the footsteps of President Mwai Kibaki when he was leaving office, that he did leave endorsement and succession politics to the dynamics that are within in the country. So I don't think President Uhuru Kenyatta will endorse ODM leader Raila Odinga anytime soon, unless political miracles do happen again. But in my own opinion, looking at the statement that the president has made is very important. But I think also, you know what, saying and also actions are different. But looking at the state machinery, what we call the deep state and the system, I think the president has crafted in a way that will try and push or prompt Raila Odinga for presidency. But you know, the president also is in a tight fixed position, because it looks like the president has been smiling to all his partners that they are saying they are assisting him in running development in the country. Because if you look, Kalonzo Musyoka, the other day Musalia Mudavadi, among other presidential hopefuls that we have in the country, they have been having political romanticizing of being endorsed by President Uhuru Kenyatta. But I think I will not be surprised if he wants to endorse Raila Odinga for presidency. As I don't know, because I don't know whether President Uhuru Kenyatta will resign from Jubilee and join ODM so that he can campaign for Raila Odinga. But I want to make clarification that some of us have been embarrassed and being embarrassed and being betrayed within Jubilee. And when the time is opportune, because PDR now has been rebranded to be the UDA, and when time comes up, I think our political record for 2022 presidential election and other elective seats has been ready. We are just sprucing up UDA for proper running of presidential and other elective positions from the MC up to the level of gubernatorial positions. But my final thought is that even as ODM considered itself rebranding and and I agree with Senator Kimani Wamatangi, that it is curious that instead of looking for a presidential candidate, I think they already have one. They should be sprucing. And my advice to ODM is that, and I'm happy that Otiende Omolo was in the US observing the elections, that despite that the popular vote was almost equal between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, you didn't see Donald Trump demanding for BBI or handshake. I think they should learn to respect the outcome of any election so that this country can protect the integrity of any electoral process going into the future. Right. But and then I think it is funny because there are so many people that are waiting for endorsement of President Uhuru Kenyatta. But my advice to President Uhuru Kenyatta that he should just work on his legacy. I don't know whether it is either BBI or the Big Four agenda. I need to tell the country in future, but he should allow the succession politics to be managed by the dynamics that we have in the country.
Okay. Otiende, you know, the reason why I'm drilling in on this issue of timing is because ODM has been very critical of Deputy President William Ruto, saying he's campaigning too early. Is this now the right time?
Yes, it is the right time, and I'll explain why. But let me double back one bit on the advice, the multiple advice from my friend Senator Cherengei. And I do not know from which platform he stands when he's spewing all this advice. You know, because first of all, I don't even know which party he belongs to. You know, him and his, his associates. Yeah. First, they formed something called Jubilee Asili. Then we saw them form something called the Hustler Party of Kenya. Then I think they formed, the UDA. Then they don't even belong to a party. So I think first, before they start spewing advice, they should tell the rest of Kenyans which party they are speaking for or from, okay? And have the courage to be in that party. Secondly, it's almost laughable when my friend, juxtaposes the US election and the Kenyan election and says, things that are not true. For example, he says the popular vote between Joe Biden and Trump was almost equal, which is not true. Joe Biden won by over 7 million of the popular votes before you come to the Electoral College. And again, in the second instance, President Trump mounted 49 challenges to the election outcome, all of which failed. In our case, we mounted one, which succeeded, and of which the party that he belongs to influenced to ensure that the servers have never been opened to date. Kimani Wamatangi here knows that we had this debate, and our other colleague Aaron Chiriot at one time even mistakenly volunteered that the servers had been opened, and we dared him to bring the results the next week. We are still waiting 3 years later. So you cannot juxtapose this, because the difference between the US and Kenya is that in the US, the winner is determined and announced. In Kenya, the winner is robbed, and so let's not go there. Now, let's come back to the very issues that we are talking about. It is the time for a very simple reason. First, the handshake is now over 2 years old. It's almost 2.5 years old. And at the time that Raila Amolo Odinga and Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta had the handshake, it was important for cessation of hostilities, because the way this country was going to collapse. You know that we had even come to a stage where some of us were drawing maps of how to divide this country. By his own admission, the president says he could not even go to any venue without determining the route to take, because there are certain routes that he could not take. We had to come to a situation where we say, let's put Kenya first as a country, despite what has happened. Without even examining who won, who lost, and all that, let's put that behind us. At that point, instead of agreeing with the president and the Right Honorable Prime Minister, the deputy president took a tangent of his own to start campaigning for the next election when it was almost 4.5 years. We've spent the last 2.5 years trying to educate people, and the president and the prime minister have kept saying and repeating that the handshake was never about 2022. It was about uniting this country. That journey has come almost full length. You know the first process of collection of views of BBI, you know the second process of harmonization, and now the third process of the draft bill. Yeah. Now we are in a stage when we can say it is ripe. It is ripe because people must now take sides. Yeah. Either you are with BBI or you are against BBI. Right now, the deputy president says he will not oppose BBI, and which means you'd expect that his troops will also say they will not oppose. But while he says that, when he goes out, he says things to suggest to people that he wants to oppose, but he doesn't have the courage. It is time that you must take sides. It is time you take sides on BBI. It is time you take sides on presidential campaigns, because it is only less than 2 years. I am not one of those who entertain the possibility or this talk of let us postpone the next election because there are so many things to be fixed. If we go that route, it would be very dangerous. Yeah. We have less than 2 years. We must get to the referendum sooner so that we get it out of the way and then focus on the 2022 presidential elections and the general elections.
Wamatangi, it would be best, would it be best if there was no presidential endorsement? Uhuru just does his term, gets his legacy out, and leaves everyone to the field. Because there seems to be now a concern whether, in fact here they say that there's a concern that Uhuru Kenyatta might fail to rally his supporters to back party leader Raila Odinga in the wake of resurgent Deputy President William Ruto.
Probably, if that is viewed from the window of what happened in 2002, remember the Kibaki Tosha discussion and the eventuality. But also remember, Kibaki Tosha was not an endorsement that was done during a campaign period and so on. It was done at the spur of the moment in Uhuru Park. Now, it has both its wins and losses, its pros and cons. And Trevor, first to answer your question, wouldn't it be best that way? I believe it would be best that way. But because it's a competition and people must win or lose it, and of course the motivation is to win for each candidate, it entirely depends on the record of your endorser. I mean, if for example, Trump had tried to endorse Biden, you know, you can imagine what would have happened. And so the record of the endorser must be neat, must be clean. In our current situation, I believe it would do a lot of injustice, even for the president at this time, for his agenda to try and endorse anyone, because then he will put himself in such a mire that it would be very hard for him to sell what he stood for and what he said he stands for. You know, one, a united country; two, with an agenda to develop, to deliver on, based on the promises made by his party. And if he ever tried to do that, then what that would mean is that he himself has acknowledged that in 2021 January, when the election is in 2022 August, a year and a half to go or more than, that he has himself okayed that now we are in full campaign mode. And that's what I was going to revert to your earlier question about the timing. And though I said earlier with reservations, when I supported what Otiende Amolo had said earlier about harmonization, I did not know he meant that harmonization equals to campaigning. Because, you know, I had limited my support to the fact that he spoke of harmonization, meaning that they are going to, you know, streamline their party, make sure that their apparatus and teams and whatever, as far as the party structures are concerned, are well, you know, in place. And remember, even when they have spoken about the search for the presidential candidate, they spoke about placing an advert and receiving CVs and vetting them and looking at them, you know, possibly in an office setting. But if it means that they're going to start holding rallies and vetting the candidates, then we have a problem. So by and large, Trevor, I think any endorsement, and if you look at probably that story that is in the paper, and I believe you'll be coming there, by Musalia Mudavadi, it is also in the Standard, whereby he seems himself to be wanting very quickly to throw away any tag that might be hung on his head that he has been endorsed, because he argues that he would want to be his own man.
Yeah.
And I believe it's one of the issues you may want us to comment on later. So maybe I could just take a go at it now that I'm on it, because Musalia Mudavadi is my good friend, and I have a lot of confidence in him as a leader. He's done his bit and done quite a lot of good things in this country. But of course, in this story and the things that the approach is taken, I think, because especially he's spoken quite a bit about us in Mount Kenya, he's said that we have been failed by the Jubilee leadership, and we would rather, back him.
Yeah.
I think for political, as a political strategy, if and when he intends to come to Mount Kenya region, I would advise him not to come with the approach of coming to fight the president there. I mean, he would come with advice independently and say, this is what I would do and this is what I think we can do better.
Yeah.
But if he stokes the fire of competition and fighting the president, because the president has not finished his term, we can have that debate when he brings his scorecard to say this is precisely what I've done. But otherwise, Musalia is a gentleman who has, in my view, a lot to offer this country. He's been in leadership for a while.
Okay.
So I was responding to that on the basis of tagging someone and endorsing him.
Yeah.
It's better when somebody goes out on their own and markets himself for who he is and what he's able to do for
So DP Ruto is not entirely wrong then?
No, I mean, on the question of being endorsed or
campaigning.
I mean,
he's trying to campaign for himself.
DP Ruto has a record, I mean, this is not the first time that the deputy president has been campaigning. Remember, in 2007, he was on the campaign trail full time.
So you don't mind his campaigning, you mind the timing?
No. I'm talking about the man and the strategy. Yeah. If it is about marketing himself and going to the people to say, this is what I can do. I mean, it's a democracy. He has a right to go and do that. Yeah. On the question of timing, that I have been very firm about, that I believe right now is not the right time to start campaigning. Because if then, and I said that when we were opening this discussion, as Jubilee, there is no day, and myself as Wamatangi, I will be very steadfast on this, that we are not going to, either run away from responsibility or hand it over or want to run away from it. We will carry our cross. Okay. When we go to the people, we will tell them this is what we did as a government. Okay. And so on the question of timing, I want to be very firm, Trevor, that I believe that between now and the year 2022, we have got adequate time when we can first deliver on the agenda that we promise the people. Then we go as one, as Jubilee. And I believe there is also, if the will was there, people can still be able to sit and talk. You mentioned a little bit about the speech, or rather the message that the president gave to the other day to the people of Mount Kenya. Yeah, and we'll be playing it in just a bit. Yes, fine. And just let me touch on that quickly, because he said that he has not endorsed anyone at all. And I believe that's the best way to move forward, because then he means that he would allow any discussion with anyone who has marketed himself and markets himself correctly. But of course, carrying that responsibility that we have to deliver on the agenda. Okay. Cherargei, there's been a question that Otiende Amola has asked you several times. Which party do you belong to now?
What I can say at this point in time, I did indicate that as members of Jubilee, we have been humiliated, we have been betrayed, and we have rebranded BDR, which is part of Jubilee coalition. You remember PDR now has been rebranded to UDA, and when time comes, we shall be just shifting to the next room, because the room we are in Jubilee, we have been embarrassed, we have been humiliated, and you can see we have been betrayed. So at this point in time, On paper, of course, as we were elected on Jubilee Party, which we are members in, but when time is opportune and when time is ready, and everybody is revamping, you can see all political parties or any people who want to run are being. So we are moving to UDA. I can tell you with certainty that when the time is opportune, we are just cruising up. We are finishing up with UDA. When time is opportune, all of us will move in en masse to the wheelbarrow movement. And I think I want to clarify that the Hustler Nation or Hustler movement is what UDA stands for. And our symbol has been the wheelbarrow to be a symbol of what we stand as Hustler movement. So any indication by my learned senior counsel at the end of Molo that we don't belong to either party or we had any other parties, I'm not aware of, because he doesn't have authority to talk about Hustler movement. I did respect him when he was discussing the issues of ODM, which is right, by excellence. But on this one, I can say with authority that we are moving en masse to UDA. We have taken our Hustler movement to that party. And God willing and hopefully, when time comes, this is the party that His Excellency the Deputy President will use to run for presidency. As for Jubilee, it has been reduced to just a party that has been used to undermine others. And when time comes off, we will bring down Jubilee and we will ensure it comes to zero before leaving it.
So you're confirming now that the Deputy President will run under UDA?
Of course, I've said we are preparing. All indications are showing that in that direction. So he certainly, when time comes and it's opportune, that is the vehicle that the His Excellency the Deputy President will use when time comes.
But when you say you will destroy Jubilee, doesn't that then mean that it is all about selfish interest rather than the interest of the people?
No, it's not about the interest. We have stakes and interest in Jubilee. You remember we are TNA and URP, among other affiliate parties, collapsed to form Jubilee. And you know Jubilee has been funded by Exchequer, by the money that has been provided with Wananchi, the taxes. As, for example, me as a Jubilee member and Senator Kimani Wamatangi, we have been paying 10,000 on a monthly subscription fee, but we have not been able, some of us have been barred. You saw SG Tuju did bar some of us from accessing our Pangani headquarters, which is Jubilee headquarters, yet we pay monthly subscription of 10,000. The Exchequer has been funding Jubilee Party just like any other parties. Yeah. And I think when times come, we must take our shares. You know, when you are bringing down the company, the shareholders must be given their shares when you are dissolving it. So when time comes, Jubilee, we bring it down so that we can have our shares and we move to any other party. Anybody, we must reduce Jubilee. That's the way KANU was being reduced to a shell, to a political party shell.
All right. Tiende, what do you make of those sentiments? We've now changed gears. We're now talking about Jubilee, which is part of also what Mudavadi said, that Jubilee has failed. But what do you make of the sentiments made by Cherargei?
The summary of what Senator Cherargei has said is that the Hustler movement, legally, is formless and rudderless. That's really what it is now. Yeah. All those mentions of Jubilee, you know, FDA, UDA, Hustler movement, and wheelbarrows, and all those, I mean, legally, it's just jargon. That's what it is. Yeah. And really, it's a confirmation of what I said, that they don't know which party they belong to. They don't know how to get in, how to get out, and you know, they're just floating. But the question of endorsement, really, let's put it as it is. It's not so much a question of whether the president endorses Raila or Mudavadi or anybody else. It is a question of his failure to endorse his deputy. That really is the issue. The entire circus in Jubilee began when the deputy president sensed that he might not be endorsed by the president as the next president. And they've kept saying this thing, that there was a promise made, all those things, you know. And so, from where I stand, it should not be a debate. Mudavadi would be worried, and I'll come back to his other sentiments, because there was a time he was promised this kind of endorsement, and then things happened overnight. So, if I were him, and he's right to therefore not expect such an endorsement, on our part, and just like anyone, there's nothing wrong with an endorsement. Okay? I mean, it has happened before. And there are people who have selflessly, Raila Amolo Odinga selflessly gave up his ambition in 2002 when he declared Kibaki Tosha. That was an endorsement. So even the president was to endorse even Raila for presidency, that would be welcome. But his presidency or his vying for presidency will not and does not depend on that. Raila has won severally, and we can debate that to the high heavens. And he has won without getting the base that would come from that endorsement. So he can win without such an endorsement anyway. But any endorsement would surely always be welcome. But let's come back to the story of Mudavadi again. I think he said a lot of true things there.
Yeah.
First of all, he has said with considerable justification, and I agree with Mama Tangi that there's still time. But it is true that the Jubilee administration has failed in various of its promises.
Yeah.
Why it has failed, we can debate. Some say that he has failed because every time he tries to move right, his deputy moves left. And you remember this was a shared, presidency. Yeah. And all the cabinet positions and other positions, Some have said maybe they set the ambitions too high, okay? Some have said maybe it's corruption. So you can go to whatever speculation, but it's true that there have been failures. And the other thing he has said, which is true, that the deputy president can now not purport to run away from those failures. He is now behaving as if he has not been part of that government for 8 years. He wants all the blame to be piled on the president and the few successes to come to him. Yet he has spent the last 3 years and the 5 years before that launching even projects that were already launched, and some which had no money allocated. Yeah. The second thing David has said, which is true, is that the BBI is good for this country. And I agree, and we've discussed that before. And I think in respect of that, the deputy president and his troops owe this country a duty of honesty. If they're opposed to BBI, let them come up and oppose it. Yeah. If they are supporting, then let them support it. Because either way, this is an election. We will come to the referendum, and it will either pass or fail, and we still move on. Yeah. Thirdly, Mudavadi says, and I agree, we need to reform the IEBC in time for the referendum, in time for the 2022 elections. He also says that he urges, fourthly, that Mount Kenya should not field the candidate. And we've spoken about this. And in equal measure, he urges the Kalenjin community also not to field a candidate, because you cannot have dominance of the prime position in a country for 58 years by two ethnicities. It is just not right. Okay. Whether elected democratically or otherwise, that's a different debate. Okay. Then he says, where I don't know is when he says he's the most ideal candidate. Now that one we can.
Over time, you already started this
I told you when we started that Otiende Amolo already has a candidate.
He's just not mentioning it.
And some of those sentiments, of course, can tell you that
I have a candidate. It's only my party that does not.
Every time when you go to a discussion with Otiende Amolo, there's a term he loves using called selective amnesia.
But what do you think in terms of Jubilee's performance? Because Mudavadi outrightly says
but when it comes to his views about presidential candidates, I'm sure if those comments had been made by one candidate that we all know, then maybe he would have had very different views. But, Trevor, two things. One, and you know, one thing I like about Otiende Amolo is that he's always been a true Democrat. Yeah. And he's been a big champion of our constitution and constitutionalism. And so one of the areas where I find that that he's sliding off the rink when he speaks about that he supports the sentiments by Mudavadi, that the Mount Kenya region, neither the Rift Valley community of Kalenjins should not field a candidate. Then what kind of democracy would you be talking about? That is selective democracy. And I believe even when the president spoke about it, I don't think that is what he meant. I mean, he was promoting the idea of fair chance, of equal opportunity, and the fact that it should ring in people's mind that that is a reality that people would address. But that does not mean that in our administration of democracy that we are going to have, because otherwise then we'll be falling into that trap of what people have been alluding to, something called a rotational presidency, which does not exist in our constitution, neither which is not democratic either. And so we've always talked about meritocracy, that let the best man win or let the best woman win. That is what we should be saying. Now, so when it comes to the question of should Mount Kenya region field a candidate, I don't think that we would have, unless we are saying that is going to be one of the proposals in the BBI, that then let's also amend our constitution such that once you have run for president, that community doesn't run again. Of course, you know what the kind of mess and chaos that would arise from that kind of proposal. So I would also want to dissuade my friend, my good friend Musalia Mudavadi, from those sentiments, that what he would seek is the support of the community and any other person seeking the goodwill and support of the people of the Mount Kenya region is to show what you can do alongside and together with that community and any other community, but not to advocate and advance a scenario or situation whereby you'll be saying that you people are now not eligible to run for this position. Then what will happen to Nairobi, which is a cosmopolitan county when it comes to running for the position of governor? And what will happen to Mombasa and Kisumu and Nakuru, where you have all communities living there? Are you going to say that then when, Mike Mbuvi Sonko left office, then there should be a silent memo there that says that no Kamba should run for that position again? And you're going to have a messy situation. So I think that we would not want to advance, and I've said that with firmness because I come from that region. And you never know, I could have ambitions to run for president. I mean, anyway, I'm saying that is the way it should be. Now, a very interesting thought I think should come along this discussion, Trevor, is because you mentioned a lot, and Otiende has said it on a few occasions when he was making his views on where do, for example, Senator Cherargei, he was chiding, of course, Cherargei, which political party are you in? But out of that chiding and discussion, I think the bigger talk and debate should be, is it high time then, if you look at how political affairs are being conducted now, pre an election for the presidency, should we then revise and reform the Political Parties Act? And then ask ourselves one more time, does this requirement then, within that act, that you can only belong to this political party for the life of your representation in parliament and so on, is it serving then what you wanted to do? Remember, the reason why we had that law then, and the amendments after, was to stop people from jumping ship midway, that you find that you jump from this party to the other party. But if then what it's giving rise is to what you are seeing, that then the same politicians who are already elected in positions and carrying the flag of that party, that they can still go and form another party and pseudo manage that party. And to the public eye and in open say it is not ours when it is theirs. You get what I mean? What we should be asking ourselves is, should we then walk in white and say that then do away with this law, it's not serving us, let somebody form a party if they have to. Maybe the consequences then would ensue.
All right.
Lastly, let me say on just very quickly on the so-called failures of Jubilee. Because it has been said by Mudavadi, Otiende Amolo spoke about it and said Jubilee has failed. And I want to acknowledge, in my view, that there have been serious challenges within the administration and the execution of the mandate that the party was given by the people of this republic. My question is from where we are right now to where we are going to hand over that baton in August 2022. And Trevor, let it not be lost on any person of goodwill in this country that it would not be easy for an administration, and it has not been easy for any government in the whole world right now. For example, if you are leading a country elected on your political party, and for example, you face like the tragedy of Corona that came for a whole year, you're going to have to deal with a messed up economy. You're going to deal with people who have lost their jobs, families who have lost their loved ones.
Yeah.
And so you expect that then the mood of the country and the reality of it is that you might not be able to deliver 100% of what you wanted, because it takes the economy, and when it's booming, for things to happen.
Yeah.
And I think what we should be asking ourselves as Jubilee is this. Other than all these other side shows you are seeing, and shenanigans and what have you, and boxing and shadow boxing and infighting, is what can we be able to do right now as we go to the elections in 2022 that we can remedy and make up for the lost time and the losses that have been, challenges that have been there.
Yeah.
Some of them not intended or premeditated, while still doing something about the ones that we could do something about. For example, like about corruption and other things. That is the discussion we should be having. Because, Trevor, as honest people, as patriots in this country, we must start also making this debate and making room for it. That it is not okay, that it is not all right for people to go to the electorate and ask for their votes to be elected and promise to deliver on a certain agenda, and midway you can find excuses and still expect that you're going to go on the last day to the same people with those with excuses you have adapted in between, and say, by the way, we could not deliver because of this, or he made me not deliver, or this one was shouting by the side here, or this one was pulling my leg under the table. We cannot have that discussion. When we say, do this for the country, go ahead and do what you said. When it comes to the time when you are going to be answerable, you must answer. And I think we need to do a lot of education to our electorate.
So with that analogy,
let people come to the table with clean hands. Let them leave the table with a certificate that says that this is what we did. And if you did not do it, you did not do it.
Do you think the deputy president should run with that analogy that you've given?
I mean, not only the deputy president, Trevor, for clarity, it is for every person and every candidate seeking elective office to hold the mantle in this country and say that I'm going to lead you, even at governorship level, even at a senatorial level, for a member of parliament. We have built such a terrible culture in this country, whereby it is all about stories and lies and what have you. Once you've gotten the ticket and you're inside the house, then you can go and do anything that you like. When the crucial day comes for you to be held accountable for what you did, then you can find all manner of stories.
Let's bring in Cherargei on this. Cherargei, now it's until now that you said you will leave Jubilee categorically and head into UDA and leave it destroyed. But are you taking responsibility for the failure of Jubilee? Do you think it has failed, first of all?
First of all, let me, I think Musalia Mudavadi is in a state of confusion or panic or excitement at equal measure. Because I think what President Uhuru Kenyatta said in his mother's funeral did rather confuse him. But Musalia Mudavadi should know that when you are mourning, people tend to be nice. It's our African culture. And I don't agree with him, just like as my colleagues have said in studio, that the essence of democracy is the content and ability and capacity to lead. It doesn't mean that when you come from a Kalenjin or a Kikuyu or a Luhya or any other tribe 44 that we have in this country, you should just be the president because you come from a particular tribe. I think that is very unfortunate for somebody who wants to run for presidency in this country. And my advice, and you didn't hear, Trev, I did say when President Uhuru Kenyatta, which was shocking, the Constitution, the presidency or the president is supposed to be a symbol of national unity. And when he did mention that, it was the law moment that we have ever seen in the country. And you did hear that, in fact, I had called upon that the NCIC, National Cohesion and Integrity, to have a discussion with the president, because that is a dangerous statement that might not be very well for the country, or it might incite other 42 tribes against the two in terms of presidential succeeding race. What I can say is that Jubilee did perform extremely well between 2013 and 2017. But when did ODM, and I have had my learned senior, Atienda Omolo, of course, whose son I went to law school with. Of course, I have tremendous respect for him. I've heard him saying that ODM has won on several occasions, or Raila Odinga has won on several occasions. As one of the senior most legal practitioners in the country, that matter has been ruled by court and it has been settled. Therefore, it should respect us that. So, in other words, he's just telling President Uhuru Kenyatta that he has never won any elections, and yet they are comfortable sitting together in handshake. So what I can say is that Jubilee did work well between 2013 and 2017. because of that cohesiveness and the respect that the president and the deputy president used to work in a symbiotic manner. You did see the connection electricity working very well. You didn't see many government projects, the infrastructure development across the country, the issue of ensuring that our children did sit for national examinations without paying the school fees, and projects that did government work for. But when and of course, when the handshake happened, and I want to put this on record, there are many projects that were being undertaken within the country. But when the handshake happened, most of these projects, especially in the Rift Valley, was being stopped because, of course, it was being perceived that it was benefiting the deputy president, which is not far from the truth. Because every Kenyan coming from any corner, even including Nyanza, Mombasa, anywhere, they have a right to development, regardless who wins an election. Even if the opponent comes from that region must benefit from the development. I think what Musalia Mudavadi and also Raila Odinga the other day are trying to do is to run away from Jubilee. I've realized that President Uhuru Kenyatta's leadership is unpopular, and therefore they don't want that scent or that smell to come to them. And saying that Jubilee has failed, of course we agree. They have failed, especially after the handshake. The legacy of the president when he took over in the second term, Trevor and my colleagues in the studio, is that he had said one of these key legacy would be the Big Four agenda. That Big Four agenda was designed very well. It was put on the paper. It was taken to State House. It has been safely kept under lock and key. No one has ever tried to implement the Big Four agenda, including food security, housing, and many other agendas. That agenda has translated or has mutated itself to the BBI, which is not good, because when President Uhuru Kenyatta running for second term in 2017, of course our colleagues decided otherwise not to run again for the second presidential elections, is that President Uhuru Kenyatta, the promises that President Uhuru Kenyatta had with Kenyans was the Big Four agenda. That was the promise. The promise that the President Uhuru Kenyatta did have for seeking his re-election term was not the handshake nor the BBI. But that one has mutated into BBI and handshake. And that is why now Musalia Mudavadi is saying, let us now run away from the Jubilee failures. And I think I think now that is why, in other words, they are just politely declining any endorsement from President Uhuru Kenyatta for presidential succession race.
So are you also running away from the Jubilee failures, Gerard?
Of course, what I can say at this point, I'm very categorical. Between 2013 and 2017, Jubilee did perform very well, and those achievements are on paper, and it's on paper on the ground. But where we have a problem is when the handshake did happen and the BBI came in, it derailed the projects, and the promises, and the covenant that Kenyans did have with the president's second term, President Uhuru Kenyatta. And you realize that President Uhuru Kenyatta didn't, Deputy President Dr. William Ruto is the principal assistant. You remember in 2018, Executive Order number 1, I think was 2018 or is 2019, that was issued that the government coordination of implementation of projects was to be taken by Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i. And there was a systemic and systematic undermining of officers of the Deputy President. So the Deputy President technically has not been in government from 2017 after the second election of President Uhuru Kenyatta. So we can't be blamed for the failures of Jubilee, because we have been outsiders within government. And therefore, I think the ODM leader, the handshake partners, including Atieno Omolo, must carry, and by saying being part of parliamentary leadership is not being part of Jubilee failures. The policies that are generated by cabinet level is being taken to the parliamentary, either to be transformed either to policy or to legislative intervention. So where the legislative intervention or policy fails, is that the legislative parliamentary leadership that the likes of Atieno Omolo and the rest are having, they must be share part of the play. But I can say, as you are aware, President Uhuru Kenyatta did link and did associate himself with His Excellency, the Deputy President. And you know, Deputy President is the principal assistant. Is the principal assistant of the President. Therefore, we can't be blamed for Jubilee failures, because one of the promises was not BBI or handshake. Our promises was on the Big Four agenda.
Okay, I have to take a quick break and then come back and hear what Matangi and Otiende have to say about this concern by Cherargei that Jubilee failed, especially after the handshake. We'd also like to hear from you as well at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. We are back in just a bit.